All right, we are live. What's up, everybody? Charlie Marlow here talking about the Charlotte Roval. I loved this race. I want to hear from all you guys. And I was surprised. I just looked at the Jeff Gluck poll, and only 57% of folks liked the Charlotte Roval. Over 10,000 votes. I was surprised by that. And we're going to get into everything. Playoffs, race manipulation. I'll tell you what. I myself, I like a little good old-fashioned race manipulation that we saw there at the end. I thought it was very, very compelling TV. All right, let's start like this. First of all, I was checking in with the race here and there at the beginning, throughout the stages. I think most people knew the way it was going to go down, did go down. SVG, of course, if he doesn't have a major blow-up, he's not just winning these road courses. He's running away with these road course races 5 in a row now. But that wasn't really the story. Maybe it should be. SVG wins by what? 15 seconds. And here's where I like the playoffs. And I want to hear from you guys. I know a lot of you don't like the playoff system. You don't like the format. You want to go back to a 36 race points championship. I get all that. I'm not totally against that. I wouldn't mind seeing it. Now, I don't like the one race finale either, but I love the playoffs for what we saw yesterday. I thought that was must-watch TV at the end, the last 10 laps or so. That's why the playoff format was instituted. Cutoff races are usually really, really compelling. That's one reason, if you go back 3-4 weeks, I didn't love that Bristol race. And I talked about it on the live stream here. It wasn't just all the yellows at Bristol. That was a cutoff race, and there was no cut line drama. I think a lot of fans who are more casual fans really tune in to the cutoff races knowing you're going to see some hijinks. That's what I put there on the thumbnail. Playoff hijinks. And that's what we got. Look, when you're watching the last 10 laps, last 8 laps, last 7 laps, 5 laps, whatever it is, and you're seeing there the plus minus, and you're seeing Ross Chastain and Joey Logano and how many spots that Logano had to make up. I thought the broadcasting crew, Lee Diffie and all them, did a really good job of explaining, hey, how many more people can Ross Chastain pass or get passed by? How many more cars do you think can Joey Logano pass? You had all the manufacturer hijinks going on. That was one of the big stories afterwards. You've probably seen the video where Denny Hamlin's talking to somebody saying, like, I didn't know what Joey Logano needed. I wouldn't have passed him. It was Noah Lewis who put that clip out there. So Denny Hamlin clearly didn't know what Joey Logano needed. And so he essentially insinuated, and we put the clip on our YouTube here from Matt Weaver. Matt Weaver does a great job covering all these races, where Denny Hamlin said, if I'd have known, I would have done what's best for me. So think about that. He's saying, look, even though Ross Chastain and Trackhouse had more speed this year, you know that Joey Logano is more dangerous. We all know that. There's a reason Joey Logano has won 2 championships in the next gen era. Penske has won all 3 championships in the next gen era. They have the setup on lock already at Phoenix. And everybody knows Joey Logano is more dangerous than Ross Chastain. All due respect, when you get into the final 8 and potentially a final 4. I thought that was hilarious that Denny Hamlin essentially said. I can't wait to hear on his podcast also, Action's Detrimental, because it was clear, if you read lips, he said, I wouldn't have passed him. But there was a lot of that going on. At one point yesterday, last lap or 2, I don't know if you guys saw this, but if you remember, at one point, Alex Bowman gets right to the bumper of Ross Chastain, and it looked like he could have tried to pass Ross Chastain. Obviously, both Chevys, Alex Bowman is out of it. You have the engine sharing program with Trackhouse and Hendrick and Chevys and all that. It looked to me like Alex Bowman really didn't try to pass Ross Chastain there. And then, of course, final turn, Ross Chastain does what Ross Chastain's going to do. He does anything he possibly can to try to get by. He had to. And, I give Denny Hamlin a lot of respect too, because Denny Hamlin said in his interviews afterwards that he doesn't fault Ross Chastain at all. He knew that at that point, Ross Chastain is going to do everything in his power for his team, for his manufacturer to try to get in the round of 8. So he just drove right through Denny Hamlin. They both spin. The iconic picture. That's why I love the playoffs. That moment, these moments would not have happened at all. And I know you have arguments on the other side. People might call it gimmicky and all that. First of all, any playoff format in any sport, it is manufactured moments. You are manufacturing drama, but people like drama. And the other argument that there's a lack of superstars in NASCAR, which I agree with. Now, to me, there's a big difference between the tier of superstars. You can make the argument that NASCAR has no superstars right now. And when I say a superstar, I'm talking about somebody who transcends racing. And we always use the old adage of, could that person be on Saturday Night Live, hosting Saturday Night Live? And I know there's not many guys that could do that. But if you're talking about Dale Earnhardt, Sr., Jr., in terms of Q rating, Jeff Gordon, I think you could make the argument that there's not one superstar in all of NASCAR. Kyle Busch, not winning anymore. I mean, Denny Hamlin, big personality. Kyle Larson, I don't think any of these guys are superstars, but there's a lot of stars. And that's where, to me, the playoffs created the focus on, instead of SVG, who give him all the credit in the world, best road course racer in a couple generations in NASCAR by far. You got to go back to Dan Gurney in terms of how many races he's winning versus how many races that he's started. But look, Ross Chastain is a star. Joey Logano, whether you like him or not, is a star. Denny Hamlin is a star. And you had tons of drama at the end there between some of the biggest names in NASCAR trying to get into the round of 8. And like I said, Chastain, Logano, and Denny Hamlin right there in the mix. I just thought it was really, really good theater. And again, I'm watching there on USA, and there's been a lot of different angles of this, but the slow motion angle they played at the end, right after the checkered flag, that showed Ross Chastain going backwards. I mean, this is straight out of Ricky Bobby almost. Ross Chastain going backwards right after Joey Logano goes past the checkered flag forward. And look, Joey Logano didn't have to finish ahead of Ross Chastain to get to the round of 8. It was down to spots, but still he did. I was just looking at the running order. It is kind of funny because so much focus is on the guys that finished 21st and 20th. Logano finished 20th in that race, Chastain 21st. And so I think I'll look at the standings, but I think it was just Stenhouse finishing ahead of Chastain was the deal breaker there. Either way, Joey Logano had the tiebreaker, so Joey Logano's in. We all know Joey Logano's dangerous, but I'm going to hear from you guys as well. But I don't know. I just, watching that race, I probably don't even, I'm just being honest, because I love NASCAR and I watch almost every race now. If I wasn't in the business of NASCAR in terms of making content with Kenny, I don't know if I would have tuned into that race. Honestly, I always follow it on X. I'll check in. If that's not the playoffs though, and you see that SVG is trending towards a 15 to 18 second win, are you really tuning into that? Unless you know there's going to be some cut line drama, which there was, which totally delivered. And again, I was critical. Bristol didn't have any cut line drama whatsoever in the round of 16, getting to the round of 12. We had fantastic cut line drama, even though it was only between two guys. It was only one spot, but that was enough. That was enough to compel me, at least, to be glued to my television for the last 10 laps of that race. So, look, the whole argument about playoffs versus full season points, I still don't think they're going to go to full season points. I wouldn't be against that. I think it'd be kind of interesting to try. Hell, everything's up in the air for 2026 anyway. If you're ever going to go back to a full season points, you might as well just try it. Just if NASCAR even said, look, we're going to try it for 2026, see what happens, I don't think anybody would be mad about it. See what the ratings are like. By the way, I'm interested to see again what the ratings are like for the Roval, because NASCAR has been losing about 20% of its playoff audience from this year to last year. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I know people are bringing up the NFL, but that was against the NFL last year. Now, if you want to make the argument that the NFL is growing while other sports are shrinking, and also the fact that NASCAR has lost a lot of their network races, they have so many races now that are on USA. So is that responsible for a fraction of the viewership loss? I will give you that. I know a lot of people don't like the playoff format. I still think it's more about the car. It's more about the car than the playoff format. And we've done tons of polls on that. And all the polls show that you guys, not just me, not just my opinion, but you guys are much more frustrated. Even if you're frustrated with the playoffs, you're much more frustrated with the next gen car than you are the playoffs. But I'm going to get to your questions and comments as well. So it'll be interesting to see what those ratings are like, because again, the Jeff Gluck poll, only 57% of you guys like that race, which is pretty low. And that's surprising to me. I wonder also if part of those results are the fact that you guys are over the Roval. And I get that too. I thought it was cool at the end, don't get me wrong. As I've been critical of the next gen car since, the first year that we started doing this with Kenny was the first year of the next gen car. And it's painfully obvious, especially the last couple years, that this car is built for intermediates. It runs so good at Kansas, at Charlotte on the oval. We're not calling Michigan an intermediate, but it was so good at Michigan. Darlington puts on a great show. And so I think a lot of people are saying, we're kind of over the Roval deal. Over the Roval. It's hard to say that. Over the Roval. Say that 5 times fast. We want to go back to a second oval race at Charlotte. I totally get that argument. I actually agree with you folks if you're thinking that way. But still, you have to play the hand you're dealt. And at this point, we got the Roval. And so we knew they were racing at the Roval. And I thought it was unbelievable. But also, I understand if you're saying I don't like the playoff format and it was only a great finish. Look, I'm not lying to you folks. I checked in. I'm seeing SVG run away with it, this and that. But as I'm checking my phone and making sure I'm following the progress of the race, I had to sit down for that last 10 laps, and it did not disappoint. And I'm really, really glad it did. And again, that's why I like the playoff format. I don't think it should be a one-race finale. But I like the playoffs, and I think in 2025, you have to have some semblance. In my opinion, you have to have some semblance of a playoff format to try to get these ADD, ADHD, I say that with love, younger generation of folks who are just looking for any reason to click off the TV. So that's my take there. I feel like I hit everything that I wanted to get to. And here's another thing. What do you guys think of the concept of race manipulation? I have to say, I kind of like it. To one person, it's race manipulation. To somebody else, it's gamesmanship, right? It can't be blatant. We saw that last year with the Christopher Bell and William Byron deal at Martinsville. That's another thing where, look, if we have a 3 or 4 race finale for the playoffs moving forward, there is going to be a lot of manufacturer manipulation, gamesmanship, whatever you want to call it, going on. Even Logano, what Logano yesterday said something about Gilliland passing him. Every spot matters. And if you're not in the playoffs and you're a Chevy and a Chevy needs to get in, or you're a Ford and a Ford needs to get in, Toyota, whatever it is, you know that's going to happen. It's almost like, how can they do it in a way that it doesn't look blatantly obvious? And that's where Paul Wolf said this. Another great video on the channel here. courtesy of Matt Weaver. He's like, Paul Wolf basically said, I get it. I get it if you're kind of right there with the guy and you don't want to just balls to the wall, do anything to pass him and maybe wreck yourself. I get that. He goes, but if you're 1 or 2 seconds faster and you're not passing the guy, if you're essentially just pulling over on the side of the road, that is race manipulation. And you're not really racing at that point anymore. But I think that adds to it. I really do. We've always had that. We've always had team play at super speedways. Again, it can't be super blatant. We've seen that in past years with Penske. We've seen Logano the year that Blaney won the championship, right? Logano blocking for Blaney. I think that's kind of all part of the fun of racing, to be honest with you. And I understand if some of you don't like it. I just think it adds a lot of drama to the situation. So 16 minutes in here, 111 of you watching live. I appreciate that. Let me check YouTube real quick. And I'm going to get to your comments. I'm going to get to your questions. I love the Roval. I thought it was really, really fun. By the way, I did not do a live stream last week. Kansas is my favorite track also, but I was on the road. I was watching the Cleveland Guardians play baseball. And so, again, I'm following the race on my phone and all that, but I didn't really watch Kansas. I was out of town. I was traveling. So I didn't want to get on and do a live stream and pretend like I really watched the race when I didn't. So I took the week off and we're back. And I'm glad because the Roval was fantastic, in my opinion. All right, 481 of you watching so far in the last 17 minutes or so. Appreciate that. 107 of you watching live. All right, let's get to some of your comments. All right, King Solomon Racing Network. Hello. Hello, Solomon. Our guy Nick from London, always checking in. He says, please interview Jeff Hammond. I don't know if you saw, Kenny did interview Jeff Hammond yesterday. Kenny was at the Roval for Trackside Live, and really good little 3-4 minute clip. Jeff Hammond talking about the fact that in 1985, he was the crew chief for Darrell Waltrip, going against Bill Elliott, where Bill Elliott wins 11 races, doesn't win the championship. Darrell Waltrip 3 wins, but much more consistent, which again is playing into this whole narrative, which is, I think, a really important discussion in the NASCAR ecosystem right now, which is the playoffs, right? Wins versus consistency and all that. So this is going back 40 years. Really good. By the way, Jeff Hammond doesn't age. I think he's 68, 69 years old. The fact that that was 40 years ago and he was a crew chief at whatever age that was, 28, 29 for him. Impressive. Nick says, I love the playoffs. Me too. Let's see. Jesse says, blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. And he's telling me to shut the F up. So guess what, Jesse? Guess what, Jesse? I'm going to put you in a timeout. How do you like that? I just put you in a timeout. I can do that here on StreamYard and YouTube. If you say, shut the F up. Okay. I'm not going to take that. Let's see. TJ says, Denny F'd up. I'd put your comment up. I just don't want to put the F word up just in case. And I like swearing. Don't get me wrong. We're trying to make money here. So I'm not going to put the swear word up just because I want to monetize this live stream, okay? I'm just being honest with you guys. Let's go, Charlie. Thank you, Jeffy. Please help Randy Travis get better soon. Is that the singer? Let's see. TJ said, would you rather race against Ross or Joey in the next round, dumbass? Are you calling me a dumbass or are you calling Denny Hamlin a dumbass? Look, Denny Hamlin said he didn't know. I believe him. He said his spotter, his crew chief, they weren't telling him the details. Clearly, I mean, he said in that video by Noah Lewis, you can check it out on Twitter. He's like, I wouldn't have passed him. So I can't wait to hear what Denny says, how he explains that on Actions Detrimental. Let's see. Fishhead Viking. Love that name. I love it. I love racing and it's grown on me. I just can't constantly bitch about everything anymore. It's exhausting. I get that. I know people call it bitching and whining, but to me, it's just discussing the sport. And I think whether you're for it or against all these different things, like NASCAR is at an inflection point right now. They really are. There's so many things hanging in the balance with the sport, really kind of what it means to be NASCAR, the lawsuit, the playoff format, the next-gen car, trying to attract old fans, the classic fans again, trying to reach younger fans. These are kind of existential questions that NASCAR is all facing at the same time. And all these questions are going to be hanging in the balance this offseason. It's going to be the most fascinating winter in probably NASCAR history. Let's see. Fishhead Viking says, me and my son were there yesterday as Logano fans, and we were pumped. Let's see. We got, here we go. Dink 90. I wish they would do a random draw and fans can pay an extra $1 to enter when they buy tickets, and they pick one lucky fan to wave the green flag. That would be so awesome. That's a pretty good idea. I like that. Or maybe at least like the, you could kind of start out. Green flag waving is pretty important. Maybe you could do some flag in there, like at a stage caution, something like that. Poor Denny. Yep. TJ says, Denny always chokes in the playoffs. Look, I want Denny to win. I've said that. I've been very consistent. I'm a Denny Hamlin fan. I think he's good for business. I think he's the most interesting person in NASCAR, not just on track. He says interesting things. The fact that you have a podcast from a current driver who is as forthright as Denny Hamlin is, and he's always in the mix. He's always in the middle of everything. And then the next day or 2 days later, whenever it is, he comes on his podcast and explains everything to you folks. All these really interesting, super dramatic moments. Look, I think you're going to miss that. In a couple years, if Denny Hamlin retires in 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is, if you're a fan of media and podcasts, I think you're going to miss the fact that you had a big-name driver who was so honest in a podcast like Denny Hamlin. And that's whether you like him or not. And I've had a lot of people, I've seen comments that say, you know what, I'm still not a Denny Hamlin fan necessarily. I don't root for him on the track, but I love his podcast because it's so interesting. Nick says Jeff Hammond deserves an excellent interview, a long-form interview. I agree with that. NASCAR needs the playoffs. TJ disagrees. Nick is always trying to bring NASCAR to Dallas, but you have Texas is only, what, an hour away? Let's see. Fishhead Viking, when Hamlin doesn't win the playoffs, they say he chokes in the playoffs and can't get it done. When Logano comes in clutch and wins the Cup playoffs, and they say he's cheating and it's not fair. I don't think anybody ever says he's cheating. The argument that I don't even think the argument is it's not fair. It's fair. Everybody plays by the same rules. I think the argument is it the best way to crown a champion? Which I even agree it's not. I think you at least have to have 3 or 4 races at the end, not just one. But also, you got to give Joey Logano, not just Logano, by the way. How about Paul Wolfe? Is Paul Wolfe arguably the best crew chief in the game? How many times does Paul Wolfe either win a race or help Joey, like yesterday, advance in the playoffs when they don't actually have the speed to do it, or they shouldn't have the speed to do it? Ross Chastain was faster than Joey Logano yesterday. Now, you can also make the argument, and Ross Chastain admitted this. Ross Chastain had a ton of unforced errors. What? Pit road speeding. He went past the line there on the turn. Three critical errors from Ross Chastain. So really, Ross Chastain is the one that put Joey Logano and Paul Wolfe in the situation to steal that race at the end. If Ross Chastain only has 1 mistake, 2 mistakes, probably he's in the round of 8 and Joey Logano isn't. But give Paul Wolfe credit on the call. And again, that guy, it seems like he is a real advantage there in the pit box. He's a guy that adds value 100% to his driver. So give him all the credit in the world. Let's see. Modern safety in a Gen 4 would be awesome. Nick wants new management for NASCAR. TJ saying 4 different types of racetracks and 36 races, just divided evenly. You want that many road courses? If you're talking about super speedways, intermediates, road courses, and short tracks, I get that. But nobody wants 9 road courses. I would even subtract a road course right now. And until you figure out the racing in the next gen car, on a temporary basis, I would shift back to more intermediates. Hey, look, I'm biased. I grew up going to Michigan International Speedway. I covered Michigan International Speedway for 2 years in 06, 07. I'd give the second race to Michigan back right now. The way it is right now with the next-gen car, Michigan was awesome. And if we're going to all kind of admit that TV is more important than fans at the track, I'd give Michigan another race until you figure out the race ability of the next-gen car. That's what I would do. Let's see. Denver Thurston says, SVG is going to force Cup field drivers to right brake on road course. SVG is showing old school braking is way better than left foot braking on the road course. Yes, that heel toe, the fact that he has the precision of braking and cornering down to an absolute science. He's so much better than any other Cup driver. It's crazy. Joshua Roberts says, Charlie M. What's up, Josh? Let's see. We got Sammy 5927 weighing in. It's the box they are in. Drivers are forced to manipulate the playoff races. That's true. That's true. Jesse was banned. Jesse, I just gave you a timeout. You can come back if you're playing nice, buddy, whenever your timeout is over. How about that? How about the power I wield with my little mute button? But I'm only muting him because he was a D-head, okay? Alexander Stigall says, personally, as a Hendrick fan, I watch the playoffs not fearing Kyle, William, or Chase loses the Cup, but I find myself hate watching for the Penske cars to get eliminated ASAP. Pro full season points. I get that. How about also the fact that we always talk about parity? How about parity schmerity? Look who's in the round of 8. And I understand Trackhouse almost got in there with Ross Chastain. It's the big boys. It's the big boys, the biggest of the big boys. Hendrick gets 3 cars in. The second biggest of the big boys, I think it's fair to say, is JGR. Even though Penske's won more championships lately, JGR gets 3 cars in. And then Penske gets 2 cars in. You got to think at this point, it would be an upset if there's not at least one Hendrick car, at least one JGR car, and one Penske car in the round of 4. So probably one of those manufacturers or one of those teams is going to get 2. I mean, they have to get 2. One of them has to get 2. But my point is, at least one Penske car is going to be slipping through to the Final 4, and they got to be the favorite. I don't care if it's Logano. I don't care if it's Blaney. They got to be the favorite until you beat them at Phoenix. Christian Budd, somehow we are told that the old drivers were the greatest that ever drove, but simultaneously didn't race hard because they just rode around collecting points. Let's see. Steve Blake, I can't stand Kyle Busch, but I wish he would win a race. I like Kyle Busch also. I think he's good for business. That's another thing that stinks about Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch not winning means you're not hearing from him as much. You're not seeing him in the media center as much lately, which, by the way, he's getting funnier. He's getting funnier and funnier as he gets older. You see the videos he does with his wife where nothing's off the table. They're talking about his sex life and all that. And I mean, pretty funny stuff. I remember the first year we did this was 22. And that's where Kyle Busch, not only was he winning races his first year with Richard Childress, but also, okay, so I have the timeline wrong. So 2022 was the year, his final year with Joe Gibbs, where he was in the media center, if you remember, almost every week, because the whole story of that season was, where is Kyle Busch going to end up? And so every week in the media center, there was a new storyline of where Kyle Busch could end up. And then the following year is when Kyle Busch ends up at Richard Childress. So I may have the exact timing incorrect on that, but you know what I mean. I think this is year 3 for Kyle Busch at Richard Childress. By the way, how about Alexander Stiegel hooking us up with a super thanks, $20. Appreciate that. Under a full season points format, if Joey backs into a win in a late race demo derby like Texas 25 and Nashville 24, it's unfortunate, but life goes on. But under this win and you're in format, you know exactly what that means. Yes. Thank you again, Alexander. Is it Stigall? Appreciate the super thanks. And also, hey, we have a members program. I don't know if you guys all know that, but we have a members program, different tiers, and the premium member, Kenny Wallace, gives you a personalized video every month. So we have 1X Hessler Motorsports is our premium member right now. So just want to throw that out there, that is something that we have on the channel. But don't ever want to think you have to do that, because look, our channel is free. All you have to do is watch some ads on YouTube every once in a while. Our channel is 100% free. All right. Trying to go back here and get some more comments. Here we go. Let's see. Sammy, 59-27. I have a feeling in the next 3 races, Larson wins and Bell wins. So coming up, what is the schedule here? Obviously, you have Vegas, you have Talladega, and you have Martinsville before the finish. Let's just double check that. I'm 99.9% correct on that. Yeah, so you have Vegas coming up on Sunday. That's a 5:30 Eastern time start. You have Talladega, where you never know what's going to happen at Dega. That's the following Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern time start. And then you have Martinsville on October 26th, also a 2 p.m. Eastern time start to get the final 8 down to the final 4. The Elite 8 to the final 4. Are we not allowed to say that? Is that something that's trademarked by college basketball? I don't care. But yeah, I mean, historically, Larson is so good at Vegas. Talladega is obviously a wild card. Denny Hamlin runs really, really well at Martinsville, does he not? I have to go back. Let's look at these races this year. I know historically Kyle Larson has been amazing at Vegas, but let's just go this year's races. All right. Just hang with me here. Okay, so Josh Berry won at Vegas this year. Let's look at the results though, just to see who else. And I don't remember who racked out and all that. It's a long time ago. But Vegas this year, I want to see who had the most laps led. So Joey Logano led 40 laps at Vegas. Kyle Larson led 61. Austin Cindric led 47. So you look at the Fords there. Josh Berry won it. Cindric led 47 laps. And Logano led 40 laps. Tyler Reddick led 34 laps. But that was a pretty good track for Fords. So the Penske cars have something to look forward to coming up for Vegas. And then Talladega, clearly more of a wild card. Cindric won that race. And in that race, let's see. I feel like early on this year, the Penske cars, especially Blaney, they led so many laps early on. So Talladega, Logano led 24 laps earlier this year. Who else? Ty Gibbs led 32 laps. Chase Briscoe led 20 laps. That was kind of a mixed bag. But if you look at most laps led, besides Ty Gibbs, Chase Briscoe leading 20. How about Anthony Alfredo? But Joey Logano, there's that man again. He led 24 laps at Dega. He could absolutely win Talladega. We all know that. And then let's go to Martinsville. Now I'm just looking at this year, folks. Again, I know Kyle Larson historically is really, really good at Vegas. So there you go, right? I just want to go through it, make sure I'm not missing anything. Make sure I'm not missing anything, folks. Going through the schedule. I don't know why I was thinking. So Martinsville only has 1 race. I don't know why I was thinking Martinsville has 2 races. So I'm not going to go back to 2025 or 2024 to check out Martinsville. But, you know, Martinsville, Denny Hamlin's good at Martinsville, so on and so forth. Okay, let's see. TJ says, Denny is good for being honest. He just chokes in the playoffs. You do not like Denny. David Smith, Hamlin's great. Hate him on Sunday, but love him every other. Let's see. Fishhead Viking says, I see people say Team Penske is cheating every day all around the track and online forums. What do you mean by that? By the way, I'm just going to check because I want to see who won 2024 Martinsville. I can't remember. Remember, Martinsville, the year of the Hail Melon, everybody kind of remembers Ross Chastain, but he did not win the race. It was C. Bell that won that race in walk-off fashion to get into the round of 4. So 2024 Cookout 400 at Martinsville. Let's see. I'm trying to find so Kyle Larson qualified first last year at Martinsville. And what do we got? Kyle Larson won the first stage last year. Denny Hamlin won the second stage last year. Final results, William Byron. Look at this. Hendrick went 1, 2, and 3. I forgot about that. Hendrick goes 1, 2, and 3 at Martinsville last year with Byron, Larson, and Elliott. You had Blaney and Logano finishing 5th and 6th. Briscoe finished 10th. Obviously, it was in a Ford with Stewart-Haas Racing at that time. Denny Hamlin finished 11th. But Hendrick had it at Martinsville last year, finishing 1, 2, 3, Byron, Larson, Elliott. So if you're kind of just going historically at the next 3 tracks, I think it's fair to say Vegas, you're usually giving the nod to Kyle Larson, although Fords were pretty damn good this year. Talladega, we know, is a complete wild card. Very good chance a non-playoff driver wins Talladega, but the Fords have been really good at Dega as well. And then just based it on Martinsville, Denny Hamlin always runs well at Martinsville. But last year, Hendrick goes 1, 2, and 3 with their drivers, with Byron, Larson, and Chase Elliott, the 3 guys that are still in the playoffs this year. So bing, bang, boom. I didn't really mention, besides Hamlin, I didn't really mention the Toyotas much there. But we know C-Bell can win on any of these tracks. Briscoe, the way they're running, can win on any of these tracks. Denny Hamlin can win on any of these tracks. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right. Let's go back to the chat. Let's see. Let's hide that. Here we go. Mark D. Hated Denny and Kyle Busch back in the day. Now I'm pulling for both of them. Perfection for me is Kyle winning a race this year and Denny the championship. That'd be fun. I would root for that for sure. Jay Bond says, I know a lot of people really can't stand this format. I agree it's not the best way to crown a champion and it needs tweaks. I really like the idea of 6 drivers for 4 final races. I like that. I wouldn't argue with that. TJ says, I'd rather race Ross in the next round as opposed to Joey. JGR dropped the ball. I agree. Paul Wolf done the same with Brad Keselowski. Yeah, Paul Wolf is elite at his job as a crew chief. He's really, really good. He's a value add, as they say. Not sure if that is even an option, but I like that format tweak. Paul Wolf, brilliant. Brilliant. Fishhead Viking says, he slipped up and Wolf and Logano took a chance pitting at lap 10, and that made the difference. Yes, it did. Michigan and Kansas are awesome. To me, again, I've really only paid close attention for the last 4 years. To me, Kansas year in and year out for 2 races is the best racing on the track, and I think Michigan is right up there. Michigan is right up there for sure, and that's not me being biased. I promise, okay? Let's see. We had Jettabug. If Ross would have cut the last turn on the last lap and went through the grass to pass Denny, how would the stop-and-go penalty go if he passed the start-finish line? Right. The stop-and-go penalty was the other one where he made 3 big mistakes. Ross did. Nick says NASCAR needs more female drivers. So what do you got? Catherine Legg. You got Tony Breidinger there doing what? ARCA and a truck race every once in a while. Wasn't she doing trucks this past week, I believe? Let's see. Kyle Busch should run trucks and win that Triple Crown. Well, he said he's going to try to win. He's going to try to win the truck championship, run 1 season of trucks, right? When he's done with Cup. And then his son, Braxton, can run some trucks. And then the next year they split the schedule. He said that a couple years ago. That's his plan. Let's see. Denver Thurston says, Austin Cindric said that the reason he's going to race in supercars later this year because he wants to learn the SVG way and race with drivers that SVG competed with in the past to learn from them as well. That's cool. Wallace McKinney says, me, myself, I think Kyle Busch should go back to the Truck Series where the Truck Series championship, win the Truck Series championship. Then he'll be the only one that has a championship in all three series. Yep. Just said that. I agree. I hope number 17 will win. 17's Busher, right? I should know that. Let's check. Busher's another guy who, if you go by the Winston Cup format, he's like a top 10 guy and didn't even make the frickin' playoffs. Didn't even make the playoffs. Playoffs? Where's Busher? I'm still learning every single number. Okay. Yeah. Busher finished fourth, by the way. Finished fourth yesterday at the Roval. All right. We got Ken Simpson. The playoff format only increases race manipulation. NASCAR should forget about casual fans and go for hardcore fans that spend money and go to the tracks and understand the strategy. I get that. I think you need both. I'd consider myself traditionally a casual fan, and the playoffs get me more interested. I think there's a lot of people like me. Let's see. Christian Budd says, not sure if you can use it. MLB got mad at Tony Stewart for the Midsummer Classic, talking about the Final Four for NASCAR. Let's see. We got Mark D says, hated Denny and Kyle Busch back in the day. Now I'm pulling for both of them. Perfection for me is Kyle winning a race this year and Denny the championship. Did I already read that? Or did you send that in twice? I know I read that already. Fishhead Viking. I literally don't even know what they mean by that. That's why I'm confused. I can't remember what this is about because I'm 6 minutes behind on the chat. I like to get my opinions out there first and then read your guys, so I apologize. I'm behind. Impossible for Kyle Busch to win the Triple Crown now. Why is that? He could win trucks if he does a season of trucks here. Yeah, not right now. He's talking about when Kyle Busch retires from Cup, he said he's going to run one full season of trucks to try to win that elusive championship. Let's see. We got the random guy. Age. Busch needs a super license and needs at least a few years of lower open wheel racing to even be able to drive an F1 car. Okay. Let's see. Oh, Triple Crown. I got you. Okay. When I hear Triple Crown, I think of Indy, Le Mans, and Monaco. I got you. We were talking about Cup, Xfinity, and trucks. Yep. All good. Christian Budd says, since you are a newer fan or returning at least, do you find the point system easy or hard to follow? You're talking about currently? I think it's pretty easy to follow. I think the playoffs are pretty easy to follow. If you just tune in, I think the broadcast, they do a good job of explaining during the cutoff races. I think Lee Diffie does a really good job explaining the playoff situation. I like the playoffs. I understand, again, the argument about there's less focus on the superstars or the guys winning the races. But again, to me, Logano and Chastain, they are stars. And one of those guys got in the round of 8 and Logano, and one of them didn't. And those were two star drivers. And a lot of the focus was on that, which to me was way more interesting. Let's be real, way more interesting than SVG winning a race by 15 seconds. And I give SVG all the credit in the world, but we've seen him win 5 straight now. And I don't want to say been there, done that, but like SVG was a great story a couple years ago when he wins the Chicago Street Course race. He's a great story now, but he's almost so dominant that he's made it boring. If there wasn't a playoff format yesterday, that race to me would have been a snooze fest. Let's see. TJ says, how about the original chase format, 10 races to rule them all? I'm down with that too. I think NASCAR should try it all right now. Again, NASCAR, I don't want to say it's a crisis, but they're at a point where they should try anything and they should see how it works. And you might say it's Busch League. I would be cool if NASCAR did a season of full season points. The next year, go back to the chase, do a year of 3 or 4 for the final round, and honestly see. I don't call that a gimmick. If everybody knows what the deal is before the season starts, see what it looks like. See how the fans show up at the tracks. See how the fans watch on TV. See how the ratings reflect all that. I think NASCAR is in a weird spot. It's not a great spot to be in, but it's also a spot where you can experiment. And I don't think fans will be mad about that. I don't care if some people criticize it. You might, oh, it's a garage league. No, the fans are kind of asking for change. So run a couple different formats and see whatever works best. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I would be totally cool with that. If you want to next year go 3 or 4 races for the final round, and then you want to do a full season points, and then you want to do a 10 race chase for the next 3 years, try them all out and see what happens, I would be totally cool with that. I think that would actually be smart if NASCAR did that and see basically, again, how fans respond at the tracks and on TV. So there you go. TJ says, try something other than a one-race championship. I agree with that wholeheartedly. All right. We have 88 of you watching because the 88 car of SVG won yesterday at the Roval. We will shut her down right there. Nick says, good idea. Thank you, Nick, for chiming in. I appreciate that. I appreciate all of you guys chiming in. Thank you again, Alexander Stiegel, for the super thanks. We'll show him up there one more time. We already answered his question, but we really appreciate the super thanks. And thank you all for watching. Let's check how many watched on YouTube. 88 of you watching live. You are looking live. How about total? 1,037 of you have watched this live stream for the last 45 minutes. And we will repost this. You're probably listening now also on Kenny Wallace Media. All right. Charlie Marlow signing off. I'm going to do a couple more just because a couple more came in. Edward Way says, too many TV services needed. I get that. That's kind of a lot of sports now, unfortunately, but I feel your pain. Denver Thurston, as an outsider looking in, my playoff picture, a top 20 with a wild card elimination race at Daytona to decide the top 16, no win, and you're in. I like that. Lenville says, I hope Denny gets his championship out of the way. If you are for or against Denny, he can drive the car. That is so true. TJ says, take care, everyone. We'll end on that. TJ, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Charlie Marlow signing off. Thank you so much for watching. Love you all. End stream. End stream.